Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 253 of the Assorted Calibers Podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight, she's a lovable little scamp. She's the greatest postess a man could ever want. She's a great voice of the Second Amendment, and her farts smell like warm apple pie. Erin Paulette! How you doing, Erin?
Postess?
Why not?
I like...
Hostess with the mostess.
You didn't say hostess. I heard postess.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure you hesitated for a second and then just decided, heck with it, I'll roll with it.
I maybe did. I don't know. We'll see. I'll listen to this again when I'm editing it. And I'll be like, I didn't think I said that. And it's always, no, Erin heard correctly.
I appreciate the laugh. Yeah, you remember last week when I said it wasn't even June and June is going to be a long frickin' month?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's June and we're only 5 days into it and it seems like it's so much longer.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm not even in half of the circles that you're in, and the LZ seems real hot.
Oh yeah. It is. I've got a folder called The Great Unfriending of 2023, and it's growing.
Well, there.
Yep. So, without dwelling on that any further, that's been my week. I mean, the good news is I've been very productive lately, and one of the things I figured out is, because I had been taking melatonin in order to try and get my sleep at a reasonable time, and I was taking half a dose, and because the full dose, just I felt sort of sleep hungover. It was just, I can't do anything. And so I took half a dose, and I thought, okay, this is fine, because I didn't wake up still wanting to crawl back into bed for another 4, 6, 8 hours. But I really couldn't get my brain going until, like, 6 o'clock. And then, as an example of my brain not really functioning well, it took me way too long to realize, if I had not a bad reaction, but, if 10 milligrams of melatonin really made me stupid, the 5 milligrams might actually be what's causing me to not be able to brain well enough to do a lot of writing and things like that. Maybe I should stop. And so then I went off it, and it was like, oh my God, I'm back to being functional and creative in the afternoon. Amazing. And so I've been getting stuff done, a lot of pink pistol stuff just because it's Pride. I'm trying to get stuff ready to go. And so that's been great. So that's a good thing that has happened.
Here, I thought you were going to say that, like, well, if 10 milligrams was too much and 5 milligrams might be the issue. So the issue is take 100 grams and crush them and snort them.
I'm not going to try to understand your brain, but these are gummies, so I couldn't really snort them.
Liquid nitrogen.
You are a sad, strange little man. How are you doing, Weer'd?
I'm doing very good. I have got two very important things to talk about. They are all about family. The first one is my little girl took her first trip to the range this weekend.
Really? I thought you'd taken her shooting before.
Nope, I have not. We've done a lot of gun handling, just dry guns, doing the basic safety rules. She's known that for a long, long time, and I've been very, very, comfortable with the as Masada Yube's book, Gunproof Your Children, and so, but we got to that point where okay, she's she's competent enough that she seems to understand how the guns work. The safety rules are hammered into her head that she's just naturally very, very safe and all that. Okay. And then I'll just say, all right, you're ready. Anytime you want to go, because I really wanted her to ask. And, and finally we got talking, like we were driving somewhere else and we drove past the gun club and I said, oh, the gun club's right there. We should go sometime. She went, I don't know if I'm ready yet. And I said, well, why don't you think you're ready? She said, well, I'm worried it's going to kick too hard and I'm worried it's going to be too loud. And I said, well, we'll go when there aren't that many people shooting. And trust me, she was shooting my the rifle that my dad learned to shoot when he was 10, and which is an old Sears Cricket type rifle. And I said, trust me, it's not good. It's not going to kick. It's not going to kick at all. And so she's like, well, and I said, at any point in time, if you're not having fun or it's too loud or something doesn't feel good, you just say the word and we go. And finally we settled down to all right, how about this? How about you come to the range and watch me shoot? She says, all right, I like that idea. She just wanted to see what it was like. And so got there. I showed her how to, the manual of the arms and the gun is a little refresher. Put the shell in the chamber, load it up. It happened to be there were two guys shooting 6-hour 365s on the lane next to us. I'm like, all right, first let's stay here. And it was an outdoor range, so it hopefully it wasn't going to be too loud for her. And she's like, oh no, that's not too loud at all. And then I shot the 22 with the 20-inch barrel. And she's like, that didn't even make any noise. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much hearing safe if there wasn't other people shooting on the range, and club rules that say you have to have ears on. But so she sees me shoot a couple of times. If I'm like, all right, do you want to try? She goes, yeah. I didn't realize how boring it was going to be just watching you shoot. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty boring just watching somebody else shoot. And so, yeah, so we got her set up. The rifle's still just a hair too big for her, but that'll change. And and she got shooting. She is in that new shooter shotgun group phase where just the rounds are all on paper, but kind of in a different spot over there because she's just getting the hang of, do I hold it like this? Do I hold it like that? And all that. She learned the importance of a cheek weld very, very early on. And and so, but by the end they were tightening up. And so as we were leaving, I have a little augmented reality role-playing game that I play, and I just wanted to have a quick look to see if there was anything interesting in the gun club parking lot. She says, Dad, you don't have to worry. We'll be coming back.
Aww.
So that was good times. And then the second family fun thing that we did was I forget what day it was, but I think it was like last Thursday. A package arrived, and my daughter went out, heard the delivery guy, so she went out onto the porch, and said, "Oh, there's one for Weerdington Elizabeth Beard," and I said, "Uh-oh." And so I got the package.
Am I the only one who uses that address now?
Oh no, there's lots of people who do that.
Okay.
There's lots of people, and so you never know what's going to be in that package. So I was very, very ginger about
anything addressed to Weerdington Elizabeth. You know that it's going to be either good or it's going to be good.
it's either going to be good or it's going to be delightfully horrifying.
Yes.
And so yes, I opened it up, and it was a board game called Abducktion, and it is a game about aliens abducting ducks.
Yes, because it's spelled Abducktion. Yep, and I looked around and it had like a little shipping card that was in the box, but it didn't have who it was from. But then I put two and two together, and I'm like, oh, I remember, or it might have been I was talking to Oddball about it, and
I realized, was this the Kickstarter that because Oddball mentioned? Oh yeah, I've been watching these guys. They're just getting into production after their Kickstarter. I'm like, oh, was this the Kickstarter that Erin and Xander got in on for my Christmas present?
Yep.
And that was the case. And I will just say right off that the link is in the show notes. It was well worth the wait. Thank you so much, Erin and Xander.
So have you played it?
Yes. Yep. We played it just a couple of times. My daughter was bouncing off the walls, and so we played one game where we were just playing open hands and just kind of getting the hang of it, and then we played one for keeps, and we are definitely going to be playing it again. And we got a group of friends where we play a lot of board games with, and it's one of those. This is definitely coming over.
Oh, good.
And the package you got me also comes with an expansion pack that we didn't quite get into, but that should be very, very interesting. Just don't want to get I want to get the hang of it first. But essentially, you randomly pull ducks out of a little flying saucer and place them into your board, which is kind of like a pond, and the ducks are in order. It's actually it's kind of a stream with ponds. And so the ducks will flow downstream as ducks get abducted, and there are cards that are worth points for formations of ducks that you may abduct and get points, and you're playing for points, and they're communal, so you could be like, oh, I've got this. I'm gonna play this movement card, and I'm gonna move the ducks around, and then we've got it, and then somebody else snatches it out from under you. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And another nice thing about it is that while it is a strategy game, it's one of the ones that you can very easily play casually. So this is definitely a snacks and cocktails type board game.
Is it as cute as I thought it would be with the cute little plastic ducks that go in the silicone UFO?
Oh yeah. And let's just say my daughter was like, oh, it's too bad it doesn't have dice, because Xander got me the probably a few Christmases ago the D&D dice set that has the other little rubber duckies inside. And they are very reminiscent of that. I'm trying to remember which one has the large. I think it's the D20 has a larger duck inside of it, and or it might be the D6. But either way, there's a larger duck inside it, and it is nearly identical to the ducks in the game. And yes, aww, cute little multicolored ducks. And I guess the expansion pack has glitter ducks. And come on, who doesn't need glitter ducks in their life?
I mean, if I was at all on the edge about whether or not to get you the expansion pack glitter ducks, I mean, I had to.
Yeah, no, it is a ton of fun. It is very quick and easy to go through, and again, it's also good for nice, good casual play. So if you just want to be having a conversation or be socializing while playing a game, it absolutely can be done.
Cool. I'm really glad to hear that.
And I got to use the line of, there's one card that essentially abducts all the ducks of one color from everybody's board. And it happened to be the one that worked out best was to erase all the white ducks. And so I got to say, Whitey's got to pay.
Okay.
My wife had the exact same reaction.
Was she playing too, or was she just watching?
No, yeah, it was all three of us played.
Oh, awesome. Okay, for some reason I thought it was just you and your daughter.
Nope. No, it was
that's even better.
All three of us are playing, and I believe the expansion pack allows for even more players, but I believe it's 4 in the standard play. So,
all right, cool.
And it's definitely one of those ones. The more you've got on the board, the much more exciting the play can get.
Cool.
So again, thank you so much. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Yeah, I saw that and I just knew this was for you. And then I got you the whiskey flask carrier anyway, because I didn't want you to have nothing for Christmas.
Yes. and I love this too, but it's actually right here on my desk, right beside my sap. The 2 items that I would love to be carrying with me at all times, but they're illegal.
Aw.
All right. Well, we've got a full show tonight. So shall we dive in?
Sure. Let's dive in like little ducks in a pond.
Like little ducks in a pond. And so, as at the time of that we are recording this, the ATF pistol brace ban is in as full effect as it can be. There's been a whole bunch of injunctions going on, and so either way to say that, like, if by chance you have a pistol with a brace on it and you are not a member of I think the Gun Owners of America, definitely the Firearms Policy Coalition, and the Second Amendment Foundation, if you're not a member of any of those groups, pick at least one and join up, because you've then been officially adjoined. And so this is and so that's just my quick advice. And if you're not a member of any of those groups and you don't have one of those, pick at least one and join. They're great groups. You should be members of them.
So speaking of which, I received an email from the SAF at 3 p.m. and it was saying that the membership is surging after this judicial clarification. Mm-hmm. And apparently there were so many people who wanted to join the SAF in the first 24 hours after that ruling that it crashed their website.
Oh, crazy. These are good problems to have.
Yeah, I mean, they are still problems, yes. But yeah, it's a good problem when so many people want to join that your infrastructure can't handle it. And you know what's interesting is that I actually am a member of SAF, so it's kind of a pity I don't have a pistol brace.
I'm going on their website real quick because I know when I first joined on, yeah, it still is. $150 is a life membership. Like, I'm like, is that all? Pay $150 and you're a member for the rest of your life. So that's also a just another thing to factor in if you are chronically lazy like me and like, I don't want to keep paying. I just want to buy in. But the more important thing, there's far more in-depth articles and YouTube videos and stuff on the injunctions against this ban. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is Steve Gutowski of the Reload has an article where he actually got the ATF numbers and found that, what is it, 250,000 people were signed up for the free NFA registry.
255,000.
Yep. And so yeah, have signed up for that. And according to, depending on which numbers you want to get for the number of these braces that are out in the wild, that is between 0.6 and 8% of all pistol braces have been registered. And so
because the ATF says there's between 3 and 7 million braces in circulation, which a certain international lord of hate laughs at, because I imagine he would actually know that there are individual manufacturers who have sold more than 3 million. Mm-hmm. A more logical estimate coming from both the industry and I think some sort of governmental fact-finding, I don't remember it at the moment, says that it likely ranges from 10 to 40 million. Mm-hmm. And 255,000 registered that Form 1. And so, and I'm reading from Larry Correia's Facebook post here, and I've got it linked in the show notes. So even if you use the ATF's low number of 3 million, that means it's a mere 8.5% compliance, which means 91.5% of the brace-owning public either said, haha, no, or just weren't paying attention and don't realize that they're now felons. But of those 255,000 who did register, he posits, and I'd say this makes a lot of sense, that most of the people who did register were already known to the ATF because they'd already bought a suppressor, bought an SBR, bought an SBS, and so just decided that, well, hey, I'm already on a list. I might as well just add some SBRs to it because, if they decide to come for me, they already know about me. What's one more at this point? So what we are seeing, I think, is a huge demonstration of what's known as Irish democracy, which is when the people decide, no, we're not going to do it, and just leave it alone.
We have seen this countless times before. Connecticut, of course, passed an assault weapons ban, and very, very few guns got either turned in or registered. New Jersey passed one, and I believe it was either 0 or 5. It was definitely like maybe double digits, but just barely from my recollection of people who actually signed up. And for a fact that that's not that, but go ahead and try to figure it out. There was certainly also the interesting aspect that some people were very, very skeptical on it because the ATF was asking you to take pictures of the firearm in its configuration, essentially to prove that you weren't just essentially, decided to cut down a rifle or a shotgun and just taking the ATF's $200. They wanted to make sure that you were registering a braced pistol. They wanted you to take pictures of it, but that leads to an interesting thing because if you are cutting down, say, a shotgun or a rifle, you would submit the information on the non-NFA item, and then when you get your tax stamp back, then you can modify it. And they are telling you to show that you have it's not modified because it's legal at that moment in time, but essentially to document it. And I don't know, it's weird, but either way, I'm really, really glad that people are not complying with it. Number one, because we're getting injunctions, and that is a good start towards an outright challenge. Also, these other bans that have been pushed through by Chevron deference have done very, very poorly. Hopefully, Chevron deference itself will die horribly in a fire.
Hope so.
And
yeah, I would imagine for the most part, a lot of these people just decided to take their pistol brace and put it in the same place they've been keeping their bump stock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's another massive non-compliant not a whole lot of bump stocks got turned in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just tuck it somewhere out of the way and wait for this all to blow over.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and speaking of other rules that don't make any sense, this one is before I get too deep into it, I will say right now, I am absolutely a very, very strong and vocal proponent to ending the war on drugs. Congratulations, drugs, you won. And I consider it very much on par with our prohibition of alcohol, where it didn't really stop that many people from drinking, but it sure did create a whole lot of major criminal organizations that were filling the gap that the lawful alcohol industry no longer had.
It created the National Firearms Act.
Mm-hmm.
So prohibition is responsible for SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors being restricted. Yay!
Well, note that kind of, sort of, because of course the Depression era gangsters and the bootleggers were cited. Things like Bonnie and Clyde, the Dillinger Gang, and then also events like the Chicago Massacre were all used as political fodder for the NFA. But of course,
yes,
note
that is true. But how did the gangsters come to power? Because prohibition made the booze illegal, and correct, they got into smuggling the booze and having the speakeasies and things like that.
Absolutely. But I would note that most of the evidence states that the bullets fired from the Chicago massacre were owned by the Chicago police, and it was corrupt officers in the pocket of Capone. So therefore, they were already breaking laws when they used those machine guns. Same thing goes with the Dillinger gang and Bonnie and Clyde. They stole most of their full auto weaponry, either from police or from the National Guard. So again, it was another anti-gun law that used essentially outright lies to push legislation through. So yes, prohibition absolutely, was the root cause of the NFA, but they would have found something else if it wasn't for that. But this is all leading up to a federal court has essentially ruled that turning people into prohibited persons for admitting that they use marijuana is I think, did they say unconstitutional? Yeah, unconstitutional.
Uh-huh.
And what's really interesting about this was a court in Texas, that the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas, which is extra interesting because Texas is one of the states, really one of the few states that does not allow either recreational or prescription use of marijuana.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have expected this if it had come out of, say, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
But this was brought by an El Paso resident. So, yeah, not the bastion of liberalism within an otherwise very conservative state.
But again, this is quoting. There's a bunch of stuff in here that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it. If the fact that I just finished up a gimlet while I'm doing this podcast is no problem towards my fire ownership. The fact that I could have been twisting up a joint or having a THC gummy while doing the podcast is also no different in my opinion. But what they're trying to say is that because they cited the fact that Joe Biden issued a mass pardon for people who've committed federal marijuana possession offenses. Though of course the defendant in this case has no charges on them. He just admitted to using marijuana on the 4473. But of course, Joe Biden's mass pardon was a virtue signal in the greatest sense of the word, because there were no people that met that criteria in federal prison. All of the people that are serving federal time for marijuana were either illegal growers or illegal distributors, not personal users. If you are arrested or charged for personal use of marijuana, it's done at the local and state level. Hence why we need to just get rid of the DEA statutes on marijuana at the federal level, because, hey, guess what? If suddenly marijuana is legal federally, well, number one, in places like here in Massachusetts, and does Florida have it? I believe it does.
I actually don't know. Not partaking myself, I am not familiar with that.
Let me have a quick peek. There is a map. Let's see.
Okay, it looks like marijuana is still illegal across the state, although some cities have decriminalized possession of small amounts. It looks like medical marijuana is a thing. It seems kind of a gray area right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing just in these just very, very 30,000 foot view of that Florida is a medical but not recreational state. Mm-hmm. But it is not like Texas and, most of the South and a lot of the Great Plains states have it be just completely illegal still. But either way, the places that have some form of legalization / decriminalization people can treat it like that, because there's no worry about a a federal law that you're also breaking, which of course federal law trumps everything. That's the whole reason why we're talking about these Second Amendment cases, because, hey, guess what? Yeah, Massachusetts may have such and such law, or California may have such and such law. Doesn't matter. The Constitution says you can't do that. But according to this, they're saying that, yeah, because of the various things, but I got sidetracked. What I meant is if the DA statutes go, then guess what? If your state still criminalizes it, everybody's that's getting arrested for marijuana is getting arrested by state local police. The DEA is not coming in and busting Joe the pothead. They are. That's the local cops that are coming in and doing all of that. So the laws really wouldn't change. It would only the BS that the places that have changed the law are going through, again, with like a lot of places need to do cash only, and you can't secure business loans and things like that if you were opening a liquor store, you could do. So that's my little soapbox on the war of drugs. And of course, also, yeah, you got a lot of the places that have a whole lot of gun violence going on. Guess what? It's places where the illegal drug trade is also going on. And so if we can end the war on drugs, I think we might be doing a lot of good work to stemming gun violence, because, hey, if somebody decides not to pay for a shipment of drugs that they promised for, you can't take them to small claims court. You got to go break their legs. Mm-hmm. But either way, this is good news.
Yeah, I think this is really great because, well, all right, I would not partake of marijuana. That's my own personal choice. I'm not going to say what people can and can't do in the privacy of their own homes. But I am a big proponent of people who need marijuana, such as vets with PTSD or people with chronic crippling pain from cancer or whatever, using this to find some relief. And I really hate the Morton fork that people have to be put in where, well, I can keep my Second Amendment rights and be in pain, or I can get relief and be unarmed. And I think that's garbage. I mean, we don't make it illegal to own guns if you drink alcohol. Mm-hmm. Why should another type of drug be any different? Penalize the behavior of using a gun irresponsibly while intoxicated. But if someone can be responsible while using this drug, or in fact any drug, then it shouldn't be an issue.
No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, don't criminalize. We are not saying go get twisted on drugs or alcohol and go shoot guns. No, we're just saying that if you want, at the end of the day, you want to lock the guns up and let your hair down. Yeah. I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah, just change the order of operations. Shoot guns and then drink booze, toke your weed, whatever.
Blast some smack. If you could do it responsibly, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, look, so long as you weren't hurting other people, I maintain you've got both the God-given right and the constitutional right to mess yourself up as much as you want. You know, I personally think smoking crack is stupid. But if you can do it without hurting anyone except yourself, that's your right as a grown-ass adult.
Mm-hmm. All right, and the last little bit that I wanted to talk about, this is really more of a kind of an interesting feel-good story, but so Maryland is joining in with a lot of the other gun prohibitionist states. Mm-hmm. And doing well, all right, fine, if we have to issue permits, if we have to issue permits, fine, we'll make it so that you can't carry anywhere, and we'll make it harder to get permits, and all that. And there's a whole bunch of people protesting that. And I posted a couple of news stories from Maryland that I really just wanted to get to. Number one, just for the, good on them for speaking out against this. Also good on the news for making stories on it. Also wanted to point out that all of the Second Amendment advocates are African American. In one of the stories, the guy is open carrying in his neighborhood just as a protest, and he's wearing a MAGA hat. So that is a pretty good indicator of his political leanings. The other guy, I don't know, but I don't assume anything. Just because you're pro-gun, again, doesn't necessarily mean what your politics are. And it shouldn't mean it. Again, Second Amendment should not be a partisan issue at all. But the other angle is the news is openly talking about the fact that it's a Fifth Amendment thing. Like, if you're a criminal, then you don't have to comply with these laws because that would be incriminating yourself. And so they're pointing out the fact that these laws are only affecting law-abiding citizens, which is something that the Second Amendment activists are constantly pointing out, the fact that this doesn't bother the gang members and the hold-up artists and the crazy people. This doesn't bother them at all. They'll find a way. It just bothers the people that want to just follow the rules and stay within the bounds of the law. And this is something here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, we have a gun registry, and you can't charge a felon in possession with also having an unregistered firearm because the nature of this person registering their firearm would be essentially incriminating themselves. And it's been ruled as a Fifth Amendment violation. So gun registries only apply to law-abiding citizens not following it.
Mm. Now, I will say that there is one aspect of this story that bothers me, and that is this gentleman desperately needs a sling.
My exact thought as well is dude, what you doing?
Yeah. For people who haven't watched the video, he doesn't have a sling, so he is carrying his AR-15 in the low ready. Now, I will point out that his finger is very definitely off the trigger, and the muzzle of the rifle is pointing down. But still, he's got it in his hands, and I can understand why that would make some people very nervous. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, sir, buy a sling, sling it over your shoulder, please.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a nice thing. I am a huge fan of African carry, which is when you carry muzzle down off your weak side shoulder. That is my preferred sling carry method for a long gun. But as I think it was Tam Keel said it once, is for all your business guns, a holster for every handgun, a sling for every long gun.
Yeah, I believe she also made the point there's a difference between open carrying with people and open carrying at people. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman, while I sympathize with his political statements and position and action, he is very definitely carrying at people. And it's just, please, sir, just get a sling. Get a tactical sling, if nothing else. Loop it around your neck. Just keep your hand off the pistol grip, and I think that'd make a lot of people easier.
Yeah, that was one thing that did bother me quite a bit with when Texas was pushing for open carry in the state, and so they were open carrying long guns because open carrying long guns were legal, just not handguns. And there would be the people that would have like the single point sling and all that, and essentially if you're going to be having positive control of the rifle, as a general rule, that meant like a hand on the pistol grip or something, which is essentially low ready, which I get it, and I understand that it's good form, and whenever I see a police officer carrying a long gun, that's how they're generally carrying it. But yeah, I like the idea of using a 2-point sling and having it slung over your shoulder.
So I am, as we speak, including a link to a picture that explains the difference between American carry, European carry, and African carry.
I have never seen anyone doing the European carry, and okay.
Well, it's Europe. What are you going to do?
That looks deeply awkward and uncomfortable.
Again, it's Europeans with guns. What do you expect?
Mm-hmm. Though I will say my preferred method with African carry is you have your left hand on the he's got this the picture he's got it he's controlling it with his hand on the sling. I prefer to control it with my hand on the forearm of the rifle.
After many weeks, Weer'd is finally done fisking the Brady Campaign podcast, and this week we ask, why bother?
Oh my goodness. I'm finally at the end of my Fisk of the Brady Campaign podcast of common arguments against gun control. If this doesn't illustrate the Brandolini BS principle, I don't know what does. I've devoted over 3 solid hours of airtime to a podcast that was only 20 minutes long. Still, it was worth it, as the information covered here covers a wide range of anti-gun talking points and a look into the mindset of a gun prohibitionist. So let's hit that final argument.
And finally, position number 12. Nothing ever gets done. Nothing ever changes. We never pass any legislation. So why should I even bother trying?
If you are a gun prohibitionist, you should stop doing that. And I'm not saying that to be glib either. I was raised in an anti-gun household, and I was a teenager when the prohibitionist movement reached its high water mark, the 1994 assault weapons ban. And it wasn't until 1997 that I hooked my first computer up to high-speed internet. And it still wasn't until 1999 that I shot my first gun. And then I started using that internet to read about guns and gun laws online. But every step in that journey was one step further away from the idea that gun control is a good idea. In fact, I'll be using this Fisk to outline why gun control is an evil and offers no benefit to society.
My name's Cordy Galligan, and I am the VP of Communications at Brady.
I always look up the staffer just to see if they have any other interesting ties to anti-gun groups. But in the case of Cordy, she appears to be just a PR specialist, much like Shannon Watts, who has been pushing several left-of-center groups and currently works with Brady. So the only takeaway is that this person is an expert at messaging, even when the cause is lost.
And when I'm asked this question, which I am frequently, here's typically how I respond. I understand that people are frustrated. I'm frustrated, but we are seeing momentum here.
Oh, this is going to be good. Just as a reminder, this podcast was aired on June 3rd, 2022. 20 days later, the most powerful Second Amendment Supreme Court case since Heller v. D.C. was ruled upon. And then 2 days later, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act was signed by President Biden. A gun control bill so strong, I'm going to need to read that Wikipedia tab I just opened to remind me what that bill did again. Because it's impacted my life so damn much in the last year.
At the federal level, the House has passed a number of bills, universal background checks.
And all you got was that Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And oops, I just closed that Wikipedia tab, so I can't tell you what it did. Can you, the listener, remember what it did? But the point of this Fisk is to educate, not to mock. So let's quickly talk about the universal background checks, which she seems to think are good. What universal background checks mean to a gun prohibitionist is banning of all private sales. So every firearm must transfer ownership at a licensed firearms dealer with a background check and generally a transfer fee. There's the first pitfall. You need to arrange a transfer from one lawful owner to the next within business hours of the shop and travel to that shop. Further, there's no law or guideline on how much a shop charges. Generally, most shops charge between $20 and $50. But if you live in D.C., I did a quick search for an FFL in the district, and this one charges $125 for a transfer and offers the generous discount of $75 for each additional gun you want to legally transfer to you. Even at $20 a pop, an estate transfer could easily become financially crippling. Further, this requires a federally licensed dealer, which really is at the pleasure of the ATF, an agency that's known to change their mind for political reasons at the drop of a hat. During the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton told the ATF to deny all applications and renewals for FFLs that were in an address zoned as residential, which reduced the number of FFLs in the wild by half. These days, there have been allegations of massive revocations of licenses for simple clerical errors. If universal background checks passes, an anti-gun president could simply eliminate all or most gun shops in the country. Right now, there are 0 gun shops in Seattle. There are 0 gun shops in San Francisco. These are not small cities. The nation of Mexico has 1 gun shop, and Mexico is hardly a small country. This could be our future under universal background checks. Last is that whenever there's a spree killing, law enforcement quickly tells the press that the guns were purchased legally from a licensed dealer. Think about that. The body of the killer isn't even cold yet, and they know where the guns came from. This goes both ways. You can run a serial number and see what FFL transferred the guns, or you can audit an FFL and find out where the guns it transferred currently live. Universal background checks are simply a backdoor gun registration. And this is the primary reason for them pushing this law so hard. You need a registry if you want to confiscate guns. And this gets you there. Don't believe me? Well, after Sandy Hook, when we first heard the term universal background checks, Senator Tom Coburn drafted a universal background check law that simply allowed citizens to access the National Instant Check System over the internet and clear someone for a lawful sale. No gun make, model, or serial number, no restrictions on how many guns were transferred. You just got clearance that the person you were selling to wasn't a prohibited person. And the gun prohibition corporate lobby all spoke out against it. And the anti-gun king of the Senate himself, Senator Chuck Schumer, had the bill killed in committee. If they didn't care about background checks and only about registries, how would they behave differently?
Fixing the Charleston loophole.
Okay, this phrase should send chills down your spine. The racist killer at the black church in Charleston, South Carolina, had an ambiguous criminal charge in his background. This caused his NICS check to be flagged as a delay. How the law currently dictates, this means that the FBI has 3 business days to review the background check and either deny or clear the user. If the FBI fails to do their job, it becomes a default proceed and the sale is completed. This default proceed is what the gun prohibitionists hate. Why do they hate it? Because nobody at the FBI was reviewing the check. The Charleston killer waited over 2 months between walking into the gun shop and shooting up that church, and at no point did the FBI or law enforcement take any action. This is the goal. With the default proceed gone, it means anybody with a delayed NICS will never get a gun ever. You don't need a conviction or anything, just a suspicion of wrongdoing. And suddenly it's as good as a conviction because we got rid of the safeguard against this kind of abuse.
Stopping dark money in the political process, which ensures that groups like the NRA aren't buying the votes of our elected officials.
Ironically, I have a deep suspicion that Brady as well as Giffords are being funded directly by Michael Bloomberg. And Bloomberg has been the sole driving factor of gun control in the United States. Most gun-related campaigns, Bloomberg has been outspending the NRA. And that gulf has only gotten wider as the NRA faces legal issues and has been increasingly withdrawn from Second Amendment politics. And note that the only time the other gun groups were outspent by the NRA is in campaigns where the NRA didn't get involved. Yeah, this dirty special interest group totally wants to clean up political finances. We can trust them.
They're working to ensure police accountability and address unnecessary use of force.
Says the group who hasn't spoken out against the police incompetence that led to countless deaths in Parkland and Uvalde. Nor have they praised the police who have stopped spree killers.
And at the federal level, we also have some bills that have been passed protecting voting rights, particularly for communities of color.
Look, I'm not going to wade into the partisan politics of voting rights. I will note that A, this has nothing to do with the Second Amendment and everything to do with partisan politics. And B, I find it very ironic that the same person who's demanding universal background checks and ending the Charleston loophole is lobbying against showing positive ID at a polling place and same-day voter registration.
All of these would go a long way to help prevent gun violence.
Nope. I linked to the FBI list of safest states. Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire at the very top and have very little gun control laws. California, Washington, Maryland, and Oregon are near the bottom. And New York is right in the middle. New Jersey is right behind the New England states as the safest. And New Mexico and Alaska are tied for dead last. What does all this hodgepodge mean? It means that it isn't about gun control laws, and she's lying.
The problem is with the Senate, where a few senators are basically holding legislation hostage using the filibuster.
Another lie. The filibuster has never been used as a means to tie up any Second Amendment issue, either pro or con. This is again them reaching over to partisan politics rather than sticking to the Second Amendment.
Thankfully, there's been some momentum to pass expanded background checks.
But not so you'd notice.
But if we want more action in the Senate, there are two things that have to be done. One, we need to get rid of the filibuster. Two, we need to vote out elected officials who refuse to take action time and time again.
Again, the filibuster is not a Second Amendment issue. It's never been used for 2A issues in the history of this country. But voting out people who don't support your views is a very reasonable thing to do, and one of the reasons why all the gun control that has momentum hasn't passed. And before you think I'm getting partisan, don't for once think that many of these laws aren't getting out of committee exclusively because of Republican votes.
Senators listen to their constituents, so your calls and emails really do make a huge difference.
This is why I said it isn't so strictly partisan. While the Democrat Party is deeply anti-gun and members can be pressed for a floor vote, I suspect many of the urban blue city residents who cleaned out the gun shelves in 2020 have let their representatives know that they didn't buy those guns just to turn them back in. So in the safe confines of a committee, they vote to kill the gun control laws that Brady and Bloomberg love so much.
But it's important to recognize that Congress isn't the only way to make an impact on gun violence. We've seen a number of bills signed into law in California, Colorado, Maryland, Nevada, New York, Virginia, and we're working on passing more with grassroots activists every single day.
This also goes to the side of freedom. We can push at the state level to roll back bad laws, and we have with many of the states that have gone to constitutional carry, as well as North Carolina getting rid of their Jim Crow pistol purchase permit. But for the anti-right side, it's a sick desperation. They have no support in Washington, so they retreat to deep blue anti-gun states. And if they can't get gun laws passed there, they look for local ordinances and non-binding resolutions, all while they know the courts will eventually rule them unconstitutional.
We're even making progress in the courts, where members of the gun industry have been held accountable for irresponsible business practices that just fuel our gun violence epidemic.
Okay. So she's citing the Remington case, where Remington was being sued by the families of the victims at Sandy Hook because the advertisements were deemed a contribution to the attack. Never mind that the Bushmaster rifle in question was bought by the killer's first victim, his mother, and it was never presented that the killer even saw an ad. But she's calling this a victory because Connecticut has a commerce clause that they use to get around the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And in the decade this court case took, Big Green went into bankruptcy and the many assets of Remington were split up, leaving the corporate lawyers in charge of the liability insurance hanging out to dry. Because of this, they decided it was time to settle. So like the Clinton-era lawsuit that led to the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, none of these cases were won, but some were settled. Meanwhile, just 10 days after this podcast dropped, the judgment of NYSERPA v. Bruin case was released, and the gun prohibitionists have been on damage control ever since. She didn't know that at the time, but given how she's spinning everything else, she'd probably play it off as no big deal.
So, it may not feel like it, and we have a long way to go, but we are winning here and there, and the voices of advocates and survivors and us are what make all of that possible. And if we don't try, what's the alternative? We sit back and watch more people die and have their lives torn apart by gun violence?
What's great about this last line is that with one minor change, it can apply to the Second Amendment activists. The courts are going slow, and sometimes it seems like nothing has changed, but we are making progress. And while she claims doing nothing is just watching people die, I would argue that's a lie, but it's also the truth for us. Because while people are banned from carrying guns, banned from owning effective guns, and limited by gun-free zones, lives can be lost. And just look at the people who've been affected by the bump stock ban, 80% lower kits, and pistol stabilizing braces. People's lives are being destroyed by gun control.
So thank you all 12 of you, for being here today and for sharing answers to these things, because I think this is going to be so helpful. I know I can't wait to use some of these positions that you brought up when people ask me questions when I'm, in line at the grocery store and things like that. So thank you.
Well, there are your anti-gun talking points and a few rebuttals to combat them. Like JJ said, I hope you'll find these facts, rebuttals, and show notes useful when you encounter anti-gun talking points in the wild. I really doubt JJ's getting stopped at the grocery store to talk about gun control because A, people don't do that, and they aren't going to stop you to ask about gun rights. And B, this isn't the 90s. Nobody knows who the Brady campaign is anymore. But you will hear people talking about guns and gun laws in your day-to-day. And that's when you can use these tools, not only to change minds, but to win hearts as well as minds.
Yeah, so Weer'd. You mentioned the Brandolini asymmetrical principle, and yeah, this has pretty much been a living example of that. I have not counted how many episodes we've done where you systematically dismantle one person's argument, and all of these were in one podcast.
Yep. I mean, it was set up beautifully for that, where they just had each of the individual questions, and it was just one of those, oh, perfect, I can carve this whole thing up. But yes, I was surprised. When I was writing about the Brandolini principle, I was like, let me just see, what was the exact runtime of the podcast? Because, of course, it's been like a year since it was the last time I listened to it, like, in entirety. I listened to the whole thing, and I carved it all up, and I put them all in little individual folders, and I've been just chopping away at it. And yeah, I realized, oh my God, this one was only like 20 minutes long. This was like a super, like their podcast isn't terribly long. Ever so often they go an hour, but usually it's like a half hour to 45 minutes. And this one was a really, really short one. And I was just like, and yeah, I didn't go back and count and figure out exactly how many episodes that I did, but I do know that as a general rule, they run a little bit long. And also they did 12 questions, and I know I doubled up, I think at least twice. So there was at least 10 of them. So yeah, and each one of those Fisks is close to the runtime of the entire podcast. So yeah, when you just say things and just, it'll happen. And actually have to like, and that's good. Digging up all of the show notes. My show notes are not short. Yeah, that's doing it right takes a whole lot longer. If you don't do it right, it doesn't take as long.
So are they still producing new podcast episodes, or did they sort of lose their momentum after NYSERPA v. Bruin?
Nope, they're still going pretty good. I think they're in like a summer break right now because they haven't put out anything recently. But no, they're still going strong and pretending like Bruin's no big deal.
So they're living in denial.
Yes. And yeah, and actually I was looking at I'm like, oh, I'm finally done this. Well, now I got to figure out what my next one is going to be. And actually my next one is going to be another one of their podcasts, but I was able to carve it up into, it'll be just one regular Fisk. So, you'll have to wait and see.
They're on Spotify. Why aren't we on Spotify?
We were on Spotify, and I don't know what happened. One thing I know that when I was submitting the podcast to Spotify, one of the things they were saying is you have to be very, very careful about music, and there may have been song samples somewhere in there that Spotify does not like. So I don't know. They were saying that like even like some very, very simple musical samples thrown in there.
Surely that falls under fair use.
It falls into fair use, but this is not we're not being sued for it. They're just saying it's against their terms of service.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So if somebody knows how to get us back on Spotify, the podcast is being distributed by Libsyn, and so if you guys, if anybody knows, I went to go try to do it again, and it had moved. They changed the interface from time to time. So yeah, if someone wants to reach out to me and let me know how to get us back on Spotify, I thought it was awesome, and
you know what we could do, Weer'd?
Mm-hmm.
We could, for a phenomenal amount of effort and probably not very much return on things, we could upload the podcast to YouTube.
Actually, we actually have it on YouTube. If you actually search, it's on my personal account. So if you look up Weer'd Beard.
All right, I'm Googling here.
Or you could just go back to I think it was just a couple episodes ago. We had I posted a video of you riding in the tank.
Yeah, I see, and yeah, the one that just dropped today, it's up 17 hours ago. Huh.
So there you go.
I had no idea. Well, it's a stupid auto start, but yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Huh. I mean, no one's viewed it, but
I mean, I don't really get the people that I've heard that some people listen to podcasts on YouTube, and no judgment if you do, but I've never got that. Like there's a few of the YouTube personalities that I follow have podcasts as well, and I'll see they'll post a new video and it'll come in my updates on YouTube and be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's an hour long podcast and all that. I'm like, why would I do that? I'll just go to Google Podcasts and just listen to it there. And there's a bunch of various mostly audio YouTube videos out there that I'm like, why don't you guys just put on the podcast and I'll just listen to it in my headphones while I'm doing housework.
Okay then.
Well, speaking of housework, that's not a good transition, but I'm running with it. Erin, we heard Erin recently had suffered a hard drive failure on her computer. And as an IT specialist, Oddball gives us his tips for keeping your data safe.
Welcome to Oddball's Corner Pocket. If you listened to episode 251, you probably heard that Erin recently had the hard drive on her computer die on her. Being in IT, I was one of the folks that she asked for help and advice. Of course, I had to ask that dreaded question. Did she have her important documents backed up? Unfortunately, she, like a lot of people, had not been backing up her data like she should have been. So I figured that now would be a good time to remind folks as to what they should be doing to make sure that their data is safe from the inevitable. There's an old rule in the realm of data management called the 3-2-1 rule. Put simply, it means 3 copies, 2 types of media, and 1 offsite copy. Of course, all of these should be considered to be at least. You should have at least 3 copies. But no one's going to tell you that you're wrong if you decide to have 5 or 6, especially if these copies are iterations of a file that is constantly updated. The 3 copies is pretty self-explanatory. You should have at least 3 copies. The one that you actively use, and then 2 copies that are only there for if something happens to the original. I tend to have more than that, since I tend to have copies on the machine that I'm actually using that file on, and then archive copies elsewhere. 2 types of media is probably the hardest to do these days. Back in the day, we had spinning hard drives, floppy disks, tapes, CDs, DVDs, and a bunch of other types of media that no longer exist and few people remember. By the way, this is just a reminder, if you used a zip drive, it's probably time for your prostate exam. I would say that a modern application of this is to have a copy on the hard drive of your computer and an external hard drive. Having multiple copies on different drives in your computer is absolutely a good idea, but I've seen situations where say, a power surge due to a nearby lightning strike managed to fry all the drives that were currently hooked up to a specific computer. Remember to have surge protectors on any electronics that you care about, kids. Or I've also seen ransomware that encrypted everything it saw. Having copies across multiple computers is also a good way to do this. The good news is that if you're not super geeky like me, most external hard drives on the market today actually come with some backup software that makes setting up automatic backups significantly easier. Oh, you might be tempted to just use a cheap thumb drive. I would advise against that if possible, due to the failure rate I've witnessed with these things. If you do use one, I recommend checking to make sure that the drive is working properly on a regular basis. The last one is at least one off-site copy. This is in case something happens to the building that the machine is in, be that a regional event like, say, a 1,000-year flood, or something that only affects you, like a house fire. Incidentally, I've had to deal with both of these, so it does happen. The good news is that this has become pretty darn easy to do in the past couple years. In fact, both Apple and Microsoft offer services that will automatically do this for you. Apple has iCloud for Mac users, and Microsoft calls their service OneDrive. Of course, Google also has their cloud storage service. If you have concerns with those companies snooping through your data, and those aren't entirely unfounded concerns, especially with Google, I would suggest Carbonite as a good offsite backup service. Of course, you could build a server in the cloud or a data center and run something like rsync on a regular basis, but that's for the advanced class. So, what do you do if you find yourself in a situation like Erin, and you have a drive that has failed and you need data that's on it? First, once you've determined that the drive is toast, stop trying to use it immediately. In fact, turn off the computer and yank the drive from the case. The more that computer tries to read the drive, the more potential damage it has. If it was the drive that your operating system was on, you can try to use an external drive adapter or cradle on another machine to read the drive or run check disk on it. If that's not working, you can either take the drive to a computer repair shop and see if they do data recovery or if they recommend someone, or you can try some software like EaseUS to recover the data yourself. If the data is essential, I'd recommend taking it to the professional for the best chance of recovery. Oh, and I figure that it's worth mentioning that I understand the privacy concerns of someone looking at your drive full of clown porn. But unless if you have something that's straight up illegal, the pro is probably going to be professional enough to not share what's on there, and has almost certainly seen worse on someone else's drive. Of course, if you have your OS drive die on you, how do you get your shiny computer back to being something more than just some oddly shaped boat anchor? Step 1 would be, of course, obtain a new hard drive and install it. Wonderful opportunity for an upgrade. After that, you get to have the joy of installing a new operating system. Why, just insert the USB drive with the installer in the computer, turn it on, mash the appropriate key, usually F7 or F12, and tell it to boot off that thumb drive. Oh, you don't have one of those nifty thumb drives. Right. And you don't have another computer handy to make one. Okay, so right now, while your computer is working just fine, you should go to Microsoft's webpage on creating installation media and choose your particular flavor of Windows. At the time of recording, I'm really hoping that that's either 10 or 11. For some reason, Microsoft decided that instead of just giving you an ISO to burn, you must use their creation tool to create an installation disk for Windows 10 and 11. And you must be logged in as an administrator for that computer. After that, it's pretty straightforward. Of course, I would suggest maybe giving Linux a try, but that's also part of the advanced class. If you have a Mac, well, from what I understand, with the last couple generations of Mac, Your only options are go whine to a professional repair guy or throw it out the window and go buy a new one. That's what you get for belonging to a cult that hates right to repair. Oh, and I'll throw links to Carbonite, EaseUS, and the Windows OS installation media page in the show notes. I hope that this has been informative. If you would like to read more of my thoughts, I can be found at gunscarstech.com. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future segments, I can be reached at oddball@gunscarstech.com or on the ACP Facebook page. Until next time, have a good one.
Yeah. FYI, we of course have ACP backed up on the cloud, where it's uploaded to where you're listening to it from, whether it be on Patreon or whether it be on the various services. But I actually am a little bit old school. I have a DVD burner, and I have burnt them all to DVD. And I have a stack of DVDs here in my office, and an identical copy of them over at my friend's house, for the idea of if there was like a house fire or something, then there would be a copy, not locally. And so, yeah. And then furthermore, I am super anal about, I'm actually behind on a few things. So there's 4 other episodes on my recorder right now that I can't clean out the card just yet because they haven't all been published. As soon as they're published, I can erase it on the card.
I'm really amused that you burn every episode to DVD, because I remember you saying, no one goes back and listens to old episodes, so I don't need to obsess over audio quality. The podcast is a consumable item. People listen to it once and that's it. And then you're archiving them on DVD. It strikes me as being odd, that's all.
Well, I want to preserve them for posterity, because there's always new people listening to that first awful episode of this podcast.
It's for the historical record.
Exactly. This is our legacy.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez. That's really sad.
Well, I mean, I will just say, I actually just happened to be that my great uncle actually ran a bunch of ice cream parlors in Portland, Maine, and or the greater Portland area. And we just got talking about him and talking about he was a World War II Navy aviator. And I just went, oh yeah, he used to do commercials for the ice cream all the time, and I just went and just did a search for it. The ice cream company is called Deering Ice Cream. If you type in Deering Ice Cream commercial, you will see my great uncle on there, and he died in 2011, and so. He died in 2011, and yet there he is. He's still alive and well on YouTube, and I get to see my uncle. So I want to make sure that this gets preserved forever.
Is it that one?
It is that one. One of them. There's at least 2 that I found.
Okay. Well, when we have finished recording, I'm gonna watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for people who don't know the whole story, no, I'm not going to tell it, but I go into pretty good detail on blue-collar prepping, where I explain what happened, and I admit my mistake and acknowledge that sometimes my existence is to be an example to others of what not to do, and how I was able to get most of my data back. Oddball mentioned EaseUS, and that is something that I use, and that was very useful. And I bought a 1 terabyte SSD drive that attaches by USB, and I use that to now back my computer up. And so I have learned this lesson. It has been painful. I am not going to forget it. And so I talk all about that, and I recommend what to get in the show notes. And yeah, there's a link to my data recovery post. So yes, I was dumb. Don't be dumb like I was.
Oh, and Oddball talking about yanking the drive. That would explain. You kept talking about the fact that, all right, first it's able to do this, and now it's worse. And what's good now it's worse is the drive was slowly killing itself.
Yeah, Yeah, well, if this ever happens again, I'm not going to do that. But I was just thinking, oh, surely I can fix it with check disk. No, that made it worse.
I did the same thing when I had a hard drive failure a few years ago, and it was I mean, every time a hard drive has failed on me, it's done it differently, and this was no difference. It looked like the computer was wanting to run, but it just wasn't. It was just acting weird, and then took it into Microsoft, and they just went, yeah, your hard drive's failing. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I do want to note with some amusement that all I said was clown porn. And I said 1 terabyte drive. I mean, you don't even know if I'm exaggerating about clown porn or not. But somehow, some people, like Xander, decided that meant I had a 1 terabyte drive stuffed to the fuzzy red wig with clown porn. And, I mean, if that's what you want to think, I'm not going to ruin your fantasy of me.
No, Erin, we know that you just have your choicest clown porn on the drive ready to access, and you have several comic long boxes filled with jazz drives of the stuff that you rotate in and out when that stuff gets old.
Jazz drives. Oh yeah, that's your way of saying I need a prostate exam, huh?
I just oddball mentioned zip drives, and I'm like, oh, jazz drives. I remember those.
I used to have a jazz drive. It was quite nice at the time. Oh my God, that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when the fact that I'm burning these to DVD, that's really starting to get on the raggedy edge of, all right, it might actually suddenly take effort if I want to suddenly re-upload all of these or access these files. But I got to imagine that a spinning disk drive will be something that you could always get as a weird periphery. And the moment it stops being that way, I will get one and update it to whatever the next one is.
That would be an SSD.
Yeah. Or who knows what. They'll print it into like a carbon crystal. Everyone will just have diamonds.
Computing by De Beers.
That's right. Or a genetically modified mouse that has all of its nonsense code of DNA as just your hard drive backup. You just sequence the mouse.
And you plug its tail into the USB drive or port.
And then people will talk about, hey, do you remember when the computer mice weren't actually mice? And the computer just didn't read your thoughts on where you wanted the cursor to go?
Yeah, and you'd have to hard boil an egg to replace the mouse ball.
Oh, it's a good gag. God, I hated mouse balls. It's so gross.
Yeah, you hated mouse balls so much you would crush them.
They're just their vas deferences. Yes, I can do vasectomies on mice. Yes, I told my urologist about this, and yes, he got very pale.
In this week's segment, David talks about impoverished targets.
Erin, doesn't that say improvised targets?
My point stands.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. In this segment, I'd like to talk about improvised targets. In addition to grilling season, sport shooting season is also here. When shooting at an outdoor public range or on private property, the choices available for targets may be considerably more broadly interpreted. Sure, we can use all sorts of commercial products like steel plates or Tannerite, but those can be expensive. Tannerite also has the additional issue of having acceptable standoff distance to avoid damage to property or people. Fear not, all sorts of other target options can be found for the shooter on a budget. I strongly advise against shooting things such as car batteries, glass bottles, ceramic dishes, or other items that can leave harmful or dangerous residue. Like cars, Weerdington, like cars. However, there are a number of more environmentally friendly, low-cost target options available. First up is the ubiquitous paper plate. Available everywhere, generally at a very low cost, these simple white or patterned discs make great targets for both new and experienced shooters. Dollar stores, especially after a major holiday, are a very budget-friendly source. Combine these plates with an indelible marker and we can create all sorts of target combinations from basic to complex. Tin cans are another timeless and classic target.
In fact, it's reputed the term plinking came from the sound made when using empty cans for informal target shooting sessions in days gone by. In modern times, plastic bottles and jugs can be added to this category. For additional excitement, fill the containers with water and maybe even a few drops of food coloring before shooting. Hits, especially from high-velocity rounds, will produce impressive geysers of water. Just make sure to gather up all the debris from the ruptured containers after shooting is done. An option that doesn't need to be cleaned up after shooting are crackers. Due to their smaller size, they can be a real test of accuracy. After the range session is over, and people have departed the area, birds and other small animals will take care of any leftovers. Clay pigeons are generally slightly larger than most crackers, but can fill the same role. However, this target type may require cleanup depending on the shooting location. An even more challenging small target option are non-reloadable empty shell casings and shotgun hulls. Again, cleanup can be more challenging if necessary. For those of our listeners who have 3D printers, there are a variety of printable target files available on the web. In fact, nearly any 3D printed item can be used as a target. PLA filament specifically should break down after continued exposure to sunlight and water. ABS and PETG will last considerably longer, and remnants should be collected after shooting. Another biodegradable option are fruits and vegetables. A range I used to belong to would buy crates of pumpkins after Halloween and make them available to the members for target practice. I've also used apples. Don't worry, not in the William Tell manner. The only concern with this type of target is unexpected plants the following year from scattered seeds. The last improvised target I'll be talking about in this segment is candy. This is probably one of the more challenging improvised targets due to their small size. Earlier this spring, Oddball came to visit and brought a box of Peeps with him. You know, the little puffed sugar chicks. We set them up in my home target range and started shooting them. Or trying to, anyway. We began with handguns and .22 long rifle and worked our way up to 9mm pistols. We learned that if we hit them solidly, they'd just fall and roll down the backstop. If we hit more than an inch or so away, they wouldn't even notice. However, if our shots hit very close to the Peeps but without a solid impact, the blast of clay from the backstop would launch them into the air. As the yeet treats went flying, we joked that we should have been scoring for height and distance instead of the usual accuracy. The Peeps were also reusable even after taking several hits. I'm sure our listeners can come up with other improvised target options as well as the ones I talked about here. Just keep in mind, whether at a public or private shooting range, we need to be responsible stewards and try to leave the range in better condition than we found it. We should be considerate and clean up after ourselves. Have fun and safe shooting.
Hey everybody, Chris Chang here. I'm really excited to show you the musical target system. Today I'll be shooting Mary Had a Little Lamb.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post it on the Assorted Calibers Podcast, Facebook, or MeWe pages, and Erin or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. We're always looking for people interested in submitting posts to the blog, so please check out the site. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the name Brena Bock, that's BrenaBock. I'm also in anthologies published under my actual name. Look for David Bock on Amazon. Just not the guy who writes the computer books. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
So, in addition to all of the other things that David has listed, one thing that I found floating around well before this segment, I saw a picture, and there's a link to it to Reddit, and there is a pizza parlor in Alaska that actually includes targets on its pizza boxes. So after you eat the pizza, you can then put the pizza box up and shoot it.
Actually, interesting enough, that reminds me is if you get, I don't know, I haven't had any of the centerfire stuff, but I have, I bought a big box of Arms Score 22, and it's wonderful 22, but also the little 50 round boxes if you unfold the box, there's a target printed on the inside. So you can unfold the box and staple that up on your target hanger.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just a good idea. It doesn't cost that much extra just to run a little bit of black dye over the inside of the box, and ta-da! You got something to shoot. You're gonna throw it away anyway.
That's neat. I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah.
And David called me out because Nate Spencer, who does our music, he had a Dodge Shadow that ended up. I think it was the radiator failed on it. And the cost of the repairs was worth far more than the car. And he ended up just leaving it at his parents' house with the idea that he would do something with it, and then moved to North Carolina and just left it there. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey man, that car is still in your parents' front yard. Can I have it?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And so I called up a bunch of my my shooting buddies, and we spent probably like 2 hours taking out all of the fluids, and we ended up not being able to drain the gas tank. I wanted to try to turn the engine over, but whatever reason, the engine wasn't even rolling, even with jumper cables. And so we just cut the whole gas tank out of the car and put everything in the trunk in various buckets and containers. And then while we were shooting the car up, all of the fluids were behind the firing line in a safe place. And we actually rolled all the windows down, so much of the broken glass would stay inside the body panels. So we were making as little mess of the sand pit that we were shooting it in as possible. And then when we took it to the junkyard, we just put all the fluids back into the car and gave it back to him. So we worked very, very hard to lower the environmental impact, but if we didn't do that, the possibility of either ground contamination or a fire would have been much higher. Another fun target that I have done, and it's really, really nice, is either jugs with the top cut, like plastic jugs with the top cut off, or tubes. Like if you eat oatmeal, the cardboard tubes that oatmeal or Pringles cans, any sort of tube, put flour in it. And if you hit one of those with the flour, it'll make a big puff of white smoke. Flour dust will fly up into the air, and you'll be able to do it multiple times as the flour it'll get lower and lower. And then if you want to be like super duper cheap, you could take like newspaper or just some paper and put it on the inside to cover up the holes from the outside, and then fill it right back up. Super cheap reactive target. Now it is time to thank each and every one of our listeners, and a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To be on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers Podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
You can get more from me at my blog, which is weirdworld.com, and hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network, and go over to my YouTube channel. This podcast is over there too.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Erin Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Erin Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music and for supplying a car for me to shoot with a machine gun.
And now the stinger has been supplied to us by Xander Opal. I pivot while Weer'd sits and spins. Our segues are assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Curse you, Xander!